Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. June 28th, Chicago. Supreme Smoke, an Arab-American-owned smoke shop in Chicago, was vandalized. Someone had painted swastikas on the front of the shop, along with the back door and street sign. On the back door, the vandal also spray-painted the letters AW. The same vandal also defaced a nearby cannabis dispensary, which is also owned by people of color. This one, used by a Native American tribe, also had a swastika painted on it. The Arab-American owner of Supreme Smoke said he felt that he knew who the perpetrator was. He said a problematic former customer who he believed to be affiliated with a white supremacist gang. He's racist to the bone, the smoke shop owner said. The suspect was caught on surveillance video, which clearly showed him committing the crime. The smoke shop owner said he recognized the suspect based on his tattoos. The video was given to the Chicago police, who said that they would investigate, but of course, being the Chicago PD, they didn't have a lot of manpower to devote to this case, what with most of the cops staking out the local donut shop. The Chicago PD doesn't respond or investigate unless it's a black person being accused of a crime, so days passed. And then the owner of Supreme Smoke saw the suspect in the area of his store again. He called the Chicago police, who miraculously actually showed up, and the suspect was arrested. The criminal who committed this crime was walking the streets in the same area that he had terrorized, and the Chicago police weren't doing anything about him. It was the victim of the crime who had to make sure that this criminal was caught. The man who was arrested is 57-year-old Brody Blakesley, who has been charged with 2 felony counts of hate crime. As you can see, he's covered in all kinds of white supremacist tats, including tattoos with the letters AW on his arm, leg, chest, and body. During an interview with the police, Blakesley admitted to vandalizing Supreme Smoke, though claimed that he didn't remember defacing the other stores. When asked about the letters AW, Blakesley said it stood for Aryan Warriors, a white supremacist prison gang, and he said that the swastikas represented white reunification. Reunification? Really? Has someone scattered white people to the 4 winds and didn't tell me about it? What bizarro land does this half-wit live in? Why, the United States, of course. Now you're probably wondering, Professor Black Truth, this white supremacist vandalized some Arab American and Native American owned stores. What has this got to do with black people? Well, here's where things get interesting. Blakesley said that the entire reason that he vandalized those stores was because both of those store owners had displayed signs saying Black Lives Matter. That was what drove this pea-brain over the edge. He didn't object to Arabs and Native Americans owning stores in his neighborhood. That didn't make him feel threatened. He had no problem with that. But when those stores merely showed a sign saying Black Lives Matter, his pen had exploded and he wanted them to know they were in his crosshairs. Blakesley told police that he spray-painted the swastikas to let Black Lives Matter know the neighborhood was protected. So, to show that the neighborhood was protected, he decided to attack stores with graffiti and terrorize the owners. And, as is always the case with these creeps, you won't be surprised to learn that this Blakesley character has a long criminal record. In 1994, he served 10 years in prison in Nevada for burglary. As soon as he got out, he went right back in 2005. This time, he served 6 years in prison in California for aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. And in 2017, he received probation for an aggravated assault charge in Chicago. See, Kyle Rittenhouse did the exact same thing as this Blakesley character, and for the exact same reason. He found some Muslim businessmen and appointed himself protector of their stores. And it was a display of solidarity with Black Lives Matters that mega triggered that imbecile Rittenhouse. No one had been killing or harming anyone in that Kenosha neighborhood before Rittenhouse came along. No one was living in fear before he and the rest of his gun-toting thugs came into that town shooting people. See, white supremacy is a zero-sum game. When you so much as merely affirm that black people have the right to live, to the white supremacists, that automatically means white genetic annihilation. So if you refuse to agree that black lives don't matter, then they'll terrorize you, and as we saw in Kenosha, they'll show up with guns and start killing people. And in Kenosha, as in Chicago, the police will take the side of the white supremacists. And let's also remember that Kyle Rittenhouse is from Antioch, Illinois, which is only a little under 60 miles north of Chicago. On a side note, notice how easy it was for the state's attorney to charge this clown with felony hate crime? All he did was to spray paint some businesses with swastikas, and they immediately slapped him with a hate crimes charge. Now, if he had assaulted or killed a black person, then they would be saying that a hate crime is simply too hard to prove, but some spray paint, on the other hand, no problem. But don't go thinking that maybe the court will be serious about punishing him. The judge in this case set his bail at $20,000, so all this career criminal has to do is come up with the mere $2,000, and he'll be right back on the streets again. Legal immunity based on race is the totality of the law under white supremacy. The police are refusing to catch these terrorists even after being told who they are. The courts are giving them slaps on the wrist no matter how many laws they break. This guy and his pals are clearly trying to work up the nerve to carry out some direct racial attack on black people in Chicago. That is, assuming they haven't carried out such an attack already. We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools, because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. Our second profile in crime can be filed under swipe right for rape. Mooresville, North Carolina. Police arrested a man who they say is a serial rapist responsible for at least 2 rapes in Mooresville, North Carolina. 29-year-old Michael Shin is accused of committing those rapes and is suspected of violating women as far away as California, according to police. The first woman who reported him said that she met him online via a dating app and agreed to meet him on June 16th. She said after they met, she got in his car and he drove them to a remote parking lot where he raped her. He then left her in the parking lot with no vehicle or phone. 3 days later, on June 19th, the victim reported the crime to the police. While the Mooresville police were investigating that incident, they were contacted by the Hunterville PD, who said that a second victim had been hospitalized in their town. The woman in Huntersville said that she also met a man matching the description of the Mooresville rapist via a dating app, and he also took her to the same parking lot just 5 days after the first rape had occurred. So Shen had been using a dating app to find his victims, then lure them to remote areas to assault them. Shen has been charged with 2 counts of second-degree forcible rape, 1 count of second-degree forcible sex offense, and he's being held on a $600,000 bond. And of course, you won't be surprised to learn that this creep has a criminal record too, though the authorities have not given the details of it. Police say that more victims have been coming forward, and that since Shin spent a considerable amount of time in California, they want to know if he had been out there raping women as well. Now, people who watch a lot of TV may say, well, this one should be pretty easy to prove, so putting him away ought to be a snap. And if he was black, it would be. But as we've seen with Brock Turner and more recently Drew Clinton, you can catch some criminals literally in the act of rape, and the judge will put aside the verdict and just give them no prison time at all. These judges don't want to ruin the rapists' lives. For those of you who may have forgotten, that's exactly what the judges in both the Brock Turner and Drew Clinton trials said, that they couldn't send these fine young rapists to prison because that would ruin their lives. Absolutely no concern about their victims at all. This Shin character is 29, so it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see that a judge could easily look at him and decide that no matter what he did, why, they can't send him to prison. Prisons were made for black people. So don't be surprised at all if this guy winds up getting a sweetheart plea deal from the DA, or if he goes to trial, gets convicted, and the judge just decides to give him no prison time anyway. For some people who are genetically immune from the law, there's always a revolving door of justice, especially when it comes to sex crimes. Keep in mind, that's what happened with the man who murdered Brittany Drexel. He violated his probation so much it became a running joke. Like Brock Turner and Michael Shin, Drexel's murderer, Raymond Moody, also lived in California. Brittany Drexel was murdered in South Carolina, and this Shin character raped women in North Carolina. From the white media coverage, to how police don't release a lot of details about these rapists, to how courts consistently give them a pass, there's a hell of a lot of overlap with these cases. There's also an equal amount of overlap with how the authorities handle them, too. And that's this week's crime report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones that the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Nikki, Detroit Beauty Supply, David Green, Timothy Smith, and Bobby Williams. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.